Movie House Cinemas, proud sponsors of Conversations with Gerry Kelly. Treat yourself to a movie. Relax in VIP recliner seating without the VIP price tag. At Cityside, Glengormley, Mackara and Coleraine. Enjoy the show.
Good evening and welcome to Conversations with me, Gerry Kelly. Now, if ever there was a rags to riches story, then my guest tonight is the very epitome of it. Born into extreme poverty in 1955 in Dublin, he was the youngest of 11 children. By the age of 12, he had been forced to leave school to go out and try to earn some much needed money for the family. But over the years, with grit and determination and talent, that young boy from the 50s went on to become an international star. He is, of course, the creative genius and the multi-award-winning comedian and actor Brendan O'Carroll, a.k.a. Mrs. Brown.
That's very generous, Gerry. Thank you very much.
It's been a long time since you and I sat in one studio,
It is. The last time we spoke to each other, we were holding a golf club.
We were indeed in the K Club.
Yes.
Absolutely right. I still have the photograph. Right, you're on tour at the moment?
Yes.
An Irish tour?
Yeah, we just finished Derry and we go from Derry to Galway, Galway to Killarney, Killarney to Belfast, and then Belfast to Dublin, finishing up on Christmas week in Dublin.
It's unusual for you to do just Ireland.
We haven't done a Just Ireland tour in, this is going to shock you, 13 years.
Really?
13 years. Now, we always finish a tour, if we're doing a UK tour, we always finish it in Belfast and Dublin, in the Odyssey and the SSE, sorry.
SSE.
And the Tree Arena. But to do an all-Irish tour and nowhere else, we haven't done that in 13 years. And it's been a buzz. Derry was unbelievable.
Really?
Absolutely unbelievable.
Is it more difficult playing to a home audience, so to speak, than it is to play in the UK or Australia or wherever?
Not more difficult, but see, last week in Derry now, they were ahead of the jokes. They knew where you were going. So, no, but not more difficult. Listen, the audience that we found worldwide has been appreciative and they seem to have taken Mrs. Brown to their heart. Apparently, there's a Mrs. Brown everywhere. Everybody knows a Mrs. Brown.
Brendan, you have played places like Australia, Belgium, Canada, Denmark, Iceland, Malta, New Zealand, Serbia, Sweden and Africa. Now, there's not a Mrs. Brown at every one of those.
I'm telling you, there is. I get letters from Mumbai in India with people telling me Mrs. Brown just lives down the road. Everybody knows this aunt or grandmother that they know who arrives at the wedding and after 4 vodkas is standing up on the table, waving her knickers in the air and singing. And that's Mrs. Brown. And as well as that, Mrs. Brown and all the Moore Street traders have this, kids first. It's about their kids.
Family.
About family, but particularly about their kids. And Mrs. Brown is very much like that. She's very much, the kids.
When they show Mrs. Brown in these countries that I just mentioned, do they put up subtitles or what do they do? Have you seen them in Sweden?
No, there's one. Sometimes we sell the rights. Sometimes we sell the show itself. When we sell the rights, for instance, in Quebec, we sold the rights there to a company, and the guy in Quebec who does it is really good. He plays Mrs. Brown, and they do it all in French, using their scripts. But they do it all in French.
Sorry, he plays Mrs. Brown?
He plays Mrs. Brown, and
really?
He's a big comedian in thing. Now, he's really good. Having said that, then in Romania, there's a guy, I can't remember his name, but it's called Tanti Florica in Romania. And the guy there, he doesn't even bother. He puts on the wig with the I don't know what he's saying, but I know I get royalty, so it must be the script. But it's weird. It really is weird. The latest thing is that we're now investing, our own production company are investing in doing an animation series so that it can go then worldwide.
Oh, it'll work animation.
I think it might, yeah. Well, fingers crossed.
Mrs. Brown. It's been a phenomenal success. Going back, like the way I described your early life, some people when they look back, they over embellish how bad it was or how good it was. In your case, there's no exaggeration in the poverty.
There's not, but Gerry, I have to be honest and say that we didn't know we were poor, because everybody was poor. Everybody around us was poor. So there's not a sense of, like, what we would regard as a treat. There was a guy used to come selling broken chocolate, door to door, and a bag of broken chocolate, and my man would buy it, whatever it was, a shilling. And that was a huge treat. We'd sit on Saturday nights after the bath, and I was last in the bath, so the scum was up to here on me. And we'd sit eating broken chocolate. But for the Vincent de Paul, I don't think my mother would have survived. I think they were absolutely magnificent. I didn't know there was 2 men called every Friday night, and my mother would show them the bills, and they'd take the gas bill or whatever, and they might pay that. Or they'd say, you know, your youngest is going to school now, and there's money for a pair of shoes, for, you know, or a voucher for shoes, whatever. They were really, really good. But I used to think they were my Uncle Vincent and my Uncle Paul. I didn't know they were the Vincent de Paul. So years later, and I'm glad now that we've contributed well over 1.5 million, I'd say, to Vincent de Paul to make people's Christmases.
You have as a company?
Yeah.
Brilliant.
So what we do is and I got the idea from a guy in Canada, Mirvish. He, although he's Jewish, he doesn't celebrate Christmas, but every Christmas he gives the poor a free turkey. Every Christmas. And thousands of them. So I thought, that's a great idea. So what we did was, we go to Dunnes Stores, and Dunnes Stores then, we buy a credit card off them. It's €50 credit card. And those credit cards go out to 1,750 families. And they get to have the shopping experience as well as the Christmas experience. So they can get a turkey and a ham and a box of biscuits and whatever.
Brilliant. Your father died when you were about 7 or 8 or so. Yeah. Your mum must have been a remarkable lady.
She was. You know, I often look back at her and I think, you know, she was extraordinary, Gerry. She was absolutely extraordinary. And someday I think I owe it to her to write her story. She was the first Labour TD elected to Parliament in Ireland.
But first of all, she was a nun, wasn't she?
She was a nun. She started off as a nun, and then came home for a weekend from the convent to see her parents, and went to the parochial hall where she met my dad. And my dad was a great dancer, and my mother loved to dance. So she says there was no sex involved, but we had 11 kids. I'm sure there was. But she then, and of course that was a tough one for her too, because at that time you're going back to the 40s,
50s.
Yeah. No, earlier than that even. Because remember, I was born in the 50s and I was 11.
Of course.
So she's going back to the mid-40s, I'd say 46, and the only thing worse than not having, in Ireland, and than not having somebody in your family, in either a priest or a nun, is to have somebody who was, and then... And out. And then came out. So she had a bit of trouble with that, but an extraordinary story of a woman. She did some great things in Parliament. She got the word bastard taken off the birth certificate. And they replaced it with illegitimate, which she said, no, that defeats the purpose. So what she did was she designed the small birth certificate, the short birth certificate, which just has your name and your date of birth. Nothing about your parents, and that was used then so you could get a job. Because then, again, back in the 50s, 60s, if you went in with your birth, because you needed your birth cert and your cards to get a job, and they'd look at your birth cert and they'd decide illegitimate or bastard you were.
How much of your success did you see, if any?
None.
None.
Absolutely. She always said to me, she said, you'll either end up as Prime Minister or in prison. I said, it could be both. But as it turns out, no, she never saw any of it.
That must be a regret. The pride that she would have had in you. Yeah,
but she knew it was there. She really did know it was there, and she was... she liked me to figure out things for myself. I remember, this sounds ridiculous, but I remember when I was doing Sparrow's Trap, a movie, and we ran out of money, and it was horrible. It was just a terrible time. I'd gotten down to there. And it was really dark days, and on one occasion I was in the apartment in town. I had an apartment in town. I didn't even pull up the blinds for 2 days. I just sat in the dark, no telly on, no nothing, just sat in the dark for 2 days. And on the second night I went to bed, and I did something that I I rarely do, and I should do probably more often, but I knelt down beside my bed and I prayed. And I said, Mommy, I know you like me to figure things out on my own, but please, just give me some guidance here. I'm in a dead end. And I had a dream that night, a vivid dream. I was in an office, apparently my office, and there was a phone, and a girl came in, popped in the door, apparently my assistant, and said, Brendan, your mother's on the phone. Oh, I said, great. So, but hello? I said, you got my message? She said, yes, I did. I said, well, what's the story? She said, the story is the answer to every problem is action. If you want it bad enough that you get down on your knees and pray for it, get up off your knees and do something about it. And I hung up the phone, never looked back. Never looked back. Went back to work and worked. And I ended up with Gerry Kelly.
What a story. I know it begs the question, because it would appear everything you touch today turns to gold.
Yeah, right.
Well, it certainly didn't in those days. Because that you're talking about, that the Sparrows...
Yeah, Sparrows Trap.
You lost, that was a film that you were trying to make.
Yeah.
You lost...
2.2 million.
2.2 million?
Yeah, and even worse, 2.2 million I didn't have. So it took me and Jen 6 years to pay it off.
Did you tell me at one stage...
And nobody's ever seen that movie.
Did you ever finish it?
It's finished. It's done. It's edited. It's ready.
So why hasn't it been seen?
I don't know. I just haven't released it. I just feel it gives me the wheelies every time I think of it.
Bad time of your life. Did you tell me, or am I got this all wrong? Did you try to start an airline company at one stage?
Yes. Yeah.
And you lost money at that as well?
No. That was just. All we lost was an initial investment, which is your research investment, and you allow for that. You allow maybe, okay, it's going to cost 100 grand to find out whether or not we can do this. And if you don't have the 100 grand, then don't look at it. So yeah, Aerin, Aerin, and the idea of it was that you would have a circular and crisscross commuter line. So you'd have a flight going Dublin, Belfast, Belfast, Donegal, Belfast, Derry, Derry, Galway, Galway, Kerry, Kerry, Cork, Cork, Waterford, Waterford, Dublin. And then there'd be a crisscross. There'd be a Belfast to Kerry, there'd be a Dublin to Derry, so that you could get on a plane in Belfast and buy a ticket to, like you would with a train, and buy a ticket to Kerry, but you might fly to Dublin first, and then you're straight onto the... Yeah. And you're in Kerry in 2 hours, where now it's... If you're in Belfast and you're going to Kerry for a conference, you will have 2 days.
Oh, yes. 6 hours solid trip.
Absolutely. 6 hour down, and then get down there the day before the conference so you can have some rest. And then when the conference is over, well, we'll stay another night and 6 hours back.
Brendan, what kind of a mind have you got? Because you really do think outside the box, don't you?
Well, yeah. I like solving problems. I like solving things. And when somebody says something and I hear it, I go, that becomes a personal problem to me. How can we solve that? So yeah, I like doing that. I love it.
Money, fame, you've got both. How do you feel it has changed you? How have you changed since those days you were talking about earlier? Because you must have changed.
Well, I turned left on an airplane.
Okay.
That's always a bonus.
Okay.
But other than that, no. I mean,
are your values still the same? Well,
I went in and then came back. Does that make sense?
Yes.
It took me a long time to realise that you're not the guy in the poster. He's an act. I'm not him. So it took me a while to get that. And then in the early days, I did the big house thing, massive. I had a massive house. In fact, by the time I moved out of that house, there was at least 2 rooms that I was never in.
Where was this?
In Ashbourne. Massive big house. And the big car. I had a huge big Daimler. I looked, and then I pulled up at a traffic light and I looked at a shop window and I saw my little head just barely over the window ledge. And I thought, I look like a pimple on a frog's arse. This is ridiculous. So I now drive a Skoda. The house I have is a 4-bedroom house in Florida. And I'm really, really happy. I'm married to the most incredible woman in the world, and I've got a lovely girlfriend. I mean, she's a lovely girl.
And you've 8 grandchildren.
Yeah, we've two girls boy our we call Jenny calls them our adopted boys. And 2 boys came to live with us when they were very, very young. They've they have a girl each. And then Fiona has 4 boys and Danny has 2 boys in Donegal. And they're I think they love me. I think particularly the Donegal ones, I think they love me. But I don't know because I can't understand a word they're saying.
Can we go back to Mrs. Brown?
Yeah.
Initially, you were never going to play Mrs. Brown.
No,
You had this
no.
thought in your head about this woman, but it was never going to be you.
And there was never going to be a Mrs. Brown. I came up with Mrs. Brown. Garrett O'Callaghan had an afternoon show.
On 2FM.
Yeah, on 2FM. And he invited me in to do some comedy pieces. He used to invite C or D list, celebrities in to read comedy pieces that he played throughout the show. So when he went in, he handed me this sheet with paper clippings stuck on it, and I'm reading it, and I must have sighed or something. And he said, "What?" I said, "No, nothing, no." He said, "Do you not like them?" I said, "No, absolutely. They're just not funny." And he went, "You think you can be funnier than that?" I said, "Yeah." Rolled the mic, and I turned the paper over, and I went into a big spiel. I'd like to say a few words on behalf of the Diarrhea Association of Ireland. Not enough attention is paid. Excuse me a second. And I did all that, and he fell around the place laughing. So Rory, who plays Rory Brown, was my press agent at the time. And Rory said, he wants you to come up for a cup of coffee after the show. I said, okay. He said, no, he never asks anybody to come up for a cup of coffee. I said, well, let's do it. So we went up and we're having a cup of coffee, and Garrett said, look, I'm looking for something for the afternoon, just a snippet, something that would be different. I said, well, I'm writing a radio soap, a 5-minute radio soap for 5 days a week. And Garrett said, are you? And Rory said, are you? And Garrett said, I'd love to hear it. And Rory said, I'd love to hear it. So he said, what's it called? As it turns out, on the way in that day, it was Louise Brown's, the first test tube baby, her 16th birthday.
Of course.
I'm listening to it on the news. And he said, and I'm thinking about how wonderful that birth changed so many lives, enriched so many lives. People had children who thought they'd never have children. I thought it was just, I'm thinking about that. So when he said, so what's it called? I said, Mrs. Brown's Boys. And he said, oh, what's it about? And Rory went, yeah, what's it about? And I went, she has, a heap of kids, and although they're all adults, she treats them like they're 4 or 5 years of age and blah, blah, blah. So I went back and he said, I'd love to see it. Rory said, I'd love to see it. So I went back and I wrote the first 10 episodes that evening. And
like little 5-minute episodes?
Little 5-minute episodes. So I went into, I booked a studio. I booked this woman to play Mrs. Brown, an actress. I never say her name because I don't want her to think, oh my God, I could have had,
Yes.
And it turned out she got a kidney infection. So she couldn't do that day. So I said, I know what I'll do. I'll do her lines. And when she's well, I'll dub her in. So I did the lines. And just for everybody else, I just did that Mrs. Brown voice. So that, that woman voice. Come in, son, sit down. And, oh, look at you, the size of you. Size of you. And next day I went back in to do the edit on the episodes, and Jonathan, who was the engineer, was digitising it, and he said, who's the woman who's playing Mrs. Brown? I said, Jonathan, that's me. I said, you've got to keep that voice, Brendan. You've got to keep that voice. So he ended up with Mrs. Brown.
I want to ask you about a couple of weeks ago, you got into a bit of bother because you were supposed to have made some racist remark in an episode that you were recording. Now, I know you've apologised and I know you've changed it, so I'm not going to go there anymore. But how difficult is it for you to write for Mrs. Brown, who is so outspoken? Because you're going to offend somebody somewhere, aren't you?
Well, comedy should. Comedy should offend somebody somewhere. Otherwise, I'm not doing our job. Comedy should be right on the edge, should be right on the... Paddy Kilty, I always remember when he said, I can't believe it's not the IRA, I fell around the place laughing, and I thought, yeah, that's a really good one. in this situation, and in the situation of Mrs. Brown, she doesn't get a lot of stuff. So the idea of it, that thing was to poke fun at intergenerational racism, how she didn't get racism. And she doesn't, Mrs. Brown doesn't get racism. She doesn't get gay, even though her son is gay, and she now acknowledges that he's gay and accepts it, but she doesn't really know what gay is, has no idea. So it's like that. So I think I will always keep trying to push it, keep trying to push the envelope, and keep trying to, push more people. Look, the one thing that incident did was to give a great awareness about racism.
Yeah.
And great awareness about the BBC. Don't take any messing, don't take any... The context of it was completely taken out.
I know.
Completely taken out of context. However, I think in the long run it was a good thing.
Yeah,
they got people talking about it.
How do you cope, or how do you react to? Because sometimes some people either love you, some people dislike Mrs. Brown.
Yeah.
How do you cope with the negative?
Well, the ones that love me, I love them, and the ones that don't, them. To tell you to pick up your remote and change the station. In the theatre, the door swings both ways. Look, there's no comedian I know, not even Charlie Chaplin, appeals to everybody. That's the way it is, I'd have an audience, Jason Bourne will have an audience, Paddy Kilty will have an audience, and those audiences won't cross over. They'll be completely different audiences. It's the same with music, I like some music, I love reggae, I love, but I can't take rap. I just don't get it. I don't get rap. Love pop music, but I don't like rock.
So
that's
you
the way people are.
you don't buy that stuff.
Now, the only thing I would say is, I don't hate anything. I don't hate rock music because I don't like it. And that's the thing I feel that some people who go, and not just about me, but I hate that. No, you don't. You don't even listen to it. You don't like it, so you don't listen to it. So you can't hate it.
Yeah.
Life's too short.
Christmas coming shortly.
Yes.
I mean, to have Mrs. Brown on Christmas Day for years, like that's the pinnacle. To be invited into the nation's homes.
It's huge.
It must be one of your proudest moments.
It is. It's probably the proudest thing, because Christmas Day for me, and I spent a lot of Christmas days alone. And, by the time I was born, my mother told me I was just one more time for old time's sake. She said I wasn't even born, I just fell out. I just ba-dunk. She said, there's another one, put it in the pram. My family had all grown up or out. And my mother was still travelling the world. Like, she was, as I was growing up, she was at Steve Biko's trial. She was protesting against the banning of the Teamsters in Canada and helping set that up, and she was going non-stop. And there's a couple of Christmases I spent on my own. She used to have this thing that she'd do. She'd ring me and she'd say to me, "Hiya, how's everything at home?" I'd say, "Everything's great, ma'am." I'd say, "Okay, now I want you to go up, and there's a book on the bookshelves called Valley of the Dolls. I want you to open it and you'll see a £5 note in there. That's the deal of the week, okay?" And she'd hang up. And then next week she'd say, "Now, I want you to go downstairs and there's a book and it's money hidden all over the place." Because she knew if I got it all at the same time, I'd blow it in a week. But I spent a lot of Christmas on my own, and the saving grace for me was on Christmas Day, Morecambe and Wise.
Yeah.
And we have that slot.
To think that you have taken over.
Unbelievable.
It's
incredible.
The whole story's been incredible. I find you're an incredible man. We will see you back in Belfast on the 12th and 13th, is it? 12th and 13th?
12th and 13th, I think it is.
12th.
We arrived there, and it's selling really well. Looking forward to the SSE.
SSE.
Not the Odyssey, the SSE.
Brendan, thank you so much for being my guest today.
Terry, it's always a pleasure. And tell your granny thanks for the chicken.
Brendan, thank you.
For 35 years, we have shared unforgettable stories on the big screen with you. From first dates to family nights, from blockbusters to indie gems, you've been with us every step of the way. The past was magic. The future, even brighter. Thanks for being part of our story. See you at the movies.